Welcome back to Sun, Sand, and Soul. Josh Tomey with David Haber and welcoming Salim Chraibi to the studio. Salim, welcome.
Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys today.
Wonderful. I'm so glad I only have to say Salim from now on because you pronounced his last name with a long A.
With a long A. It's the way to do it.
Yeah, he did right. He did good.
I did my best.
Well, that's because he's Lebanese.
I called him David Haber for a long time. So
Herr Haber.
Salim, we obviously, are here to talk about what you're doing with Bluenest and it's very varied and multidimensional and quite frankly, very different from the development orientation that is typical for South Florida. So I'd love to start by hearing a little bit more about the genesis of Bluenest and what it is, what it does, and how you arrived at it.
So I started Bluenest in 2018. Originally, we were going to develop just scattered sites, right? Because Miami-Dade County, it's very difficult to find land. So our goal initially was to find just 5 to 10 spot lots a month and build like around 20 homes a month. And so, 200 to 300 homes a year.
Single family homes.
Single family and townhouses. And then as we went on and we started scaling, so my brother joined the business in 2019 and he's, has a tech background. And then we decided to develop a platform in-house to look for land. And so we started looking for land and we started scaling from spot lots to communities. And we realized that, that was the way for us to scale. We still do some spot lots, but today we have over 2,500 homes, which are mainly communities in South Dade. And, we've always identified the need for the first-time home buyer and starter homes and workforce. Everybody in Miami wants to build $15, $20 million homes, but you look at it, the median income is $80,000 to $100,000. So, those people
need homes.
Exactly. And
are you doing townhouses also?
We are doing townhouses, absolutely, with 1% down, as you know, but the vast majority of what we do is actually townhouses and single family. We also do duplexes and single family homes with efficiencies so they can, rent out a part of the homes.
Wow.
So we have different products that we offer. We have a signature line, which is like a little bit of the higher end, but our core business is this affordable workforce place.
So let me ask you a question. How did you arrive in South Florida? Where did Salim come from and how did you get here? And how has South Florida changed since you arrived?
So I was born and raised in Morocco, came here, I was 19. I came here to play college golf, right? So amazing, Florida, the perfect spot to play golf, was playing golf every day. Then decided to stay. I met my wife, I opened the business. And for sure, Miami in the last 15, 20 years has skyrocketed in terms of price. I was renting a one bedroom when I moved here for $750 a month.
Wow.
Which, you can't even rent half of an efficiency today for
get a good parking spot in
exactly, right?
A month.
And then I decided to stay and I've, gotten very interested in the workforce place because I realized the need and I started building few homes and I saw how quickly they were selling. While I was looking at higher end homes, we were taking forever to sell. So I'm like, maybe there's an opportunity to scale this. And this is when my brother joined and then we started scaling and we started hiring people. And, this year.
How many employees do you have now?
Around 40.
Wow.
But we should have, by next year, we should be around 80 headcount, given the current growth projection we're having. So this year we're hoping to be the #1 workforce housing for sale in Miami-Dade. So
fantastic.
Yeah. So we really, I know that there was always a place for a for rent product. Developers have always been doing that historically. But we're really targeting homeownership.
So how did you come to the idea of 1% as it's a great idea. Put down 1% on a $250,000 or $350,000 home. It's less than people would pay for first, last, and security.
Correct. So this is exactly the idea, is to have people move into their home for less than it would be to rent at the same home. So a couple of weeks ago, I had a nurse that bought a home from us and her son rented an apartment in the same area. When her son rented, he had to put first, last, and deposit, which came out to $11,000. With us, she only put $4,000 and she's paying $2,600 a month. He's paying $3,200 a month, right? Plus HOA, plus our HOA also in many of our twin home projects are $10 a month.
Wow.
So, we just have party wall agreements basically. So we built it to make it as efficient as possible and as affordable as possible.
What's the average home price?
$400,000. So
So they got to put down only $4,000.
Correct.
Right. Who's your target right now, Salim?
80 to 140% AMI.
Okay.
So that's
explain what AMI is.
So AMI is area median income, right? So you have a family of 4, for example, up to $160,000.
Right. So essentially workforce.
Yes. So the police officers, the firefighters, the nurses, the backbone of our communities is who buy homes from us. And
people who we need in our community.
Exactly. And it's the first time ever that we actually are losing population in Miami-Dade County because people are getting priced out.
Right.
So you look recently, people between the age of 28 and 30 are leaving Dade because it's getting so expensive.
Right.
I mean, you look at efficiencies being rented for $2,000, $2,200 a month.
I don't have to look. I just look at what my children are having to pay and how I have to help.
And I think it's one of the great fallacies of this explosive growth. So we have seen explosive economic growth that has come at the expense of population.
Correct.
And it's come at the expense, as David has often pointed out in our podcast, of a workforce base to service this exploding market.
Absolutely.
And they can't afford to live here. They can't afford to drive for 2 hours. They can't afford the gas. They can't afford everything. The word I use is unsustainable.
Correct. Our growth is not going to be sustainable if we're losing population, if we're losing workforce, if we're losing essential workers, people that we need here, If you get into an accident, you call 911. That person needs a home. It's crazy that they cannot afford.
So does your plumber. So does your air conditioning person. So does your pool person.
Exactly.
So Salim, we're going to get into a little bit of the financing behind your construction later in the show. But I'd be interested, on a user level, on a sort of B2C level. How do your buyers look at financing? Do you provide financing? Do you provide channels for financing? Because obviously not every bank is going to underwrite a 1% down mortgage.
Correct. So, this basically our buyers are people that, they're buying their first home and we need to do a lot of hand holding. So what we do is today the interest rates are 6.5% more or less. We provide 1% down payment. We buy down the interest rate to the point where it's at 3.53%.
How do you do that?
So we buy down the first mortgage, which is around 80% of the loan amount, right? And that first mortgage that we buy down to 4.99% from 6 and change. Then we provide them a second mortgage, 30-year second mortgage, $135,000 through county support at 1%. So when you blend both rates,
of course, now you're at 3 something.
Correct. On top of that, because of the county support, we waive PMI. So you're saving $300-$500 a month in PMI. So now you don't have PMI.
What's PMI?
Private mortgage insurance. I'm sorry, private mortgage insurance.
You got to make believe that these people don't know.
So whenever you finance normally a house with less than 20% down payment, banks, lenders, they require you to have a private mortgage insurance, right? Which comes out to like $300-$400 a month on a $300,000-$400,000 loan. Because the county's help, there's no PMI. So that person saves an extra $300-$400 a month. And now their monthly payment is $2,600, right? Which is a 3-bedroom house, 1,800 square foot with a backyard. They can raise their family, and the same house could rent for between $3,500 and $4,000 a month. So it has to be their primary location. They have to live there. If for 20 years, if they're gonna resell it, they have to resell it to somebody making the same AMI. So that provides long-term affordability.
So there are restrictions on resale.
Definitely.
Right.
You're not going to buy 1% down payment with no restrictions.
But now I go back to the concept of where is this affordable workforce housing? You're telling me it's mainly in South Dade.
Correct.
That's great if you work at Dadeland.
Correct.
But if you work downtown or you work in Aventura or you work anywhere in the central corridor, you need to be buying lots in areas that need to be gentrified, in essence.
So we do that too. We have a program of spot lots where we do 100 to 200 spot lots a year, which is basically urban areas that we're reviving. So Liberty City, Brownsville, Little River, Alapata, all of those areas. The only thing is that we're in the need of 90,000 homes in the workforce. You're not going to bring those 90,000 units there's just not enough.
Especially not through spot lots.
Correct. And,
So what can the county do?
The county, I think, is doing a great job, frankly.
But what can they do to make more of these lots available in the central corridor?
So a lot of the land,
is that where opportunity zones would come in?
So opportunity zones is more for rentals, right? We're really targeting home ownership. And so it has a lot of tax incentives for investor capital gains, but our focus is bringing home ownership. So I think the county is doing a great job. I just think that our main challenges today is when rezoning properties in the South area, right? We are facing a lot of NIMBYism. So a lot of people that were there for a long time that bought their home for $200,000-$300,000 20 years ago, the home now is worth upwards of $1 million. You're proposing townhomes and like smaller footprint single families next door. There's a bad connotation with the workforce housing. They don't want to see that next to them. So that's a lot of the pushback we're getting. And then in the north,
NIMBY means not in my backyard.
Correct. And so I'm sorry. And so in the north area,
I knew that one.
Yeah. In the north areas of Dade County, which is closer to the airport, to, where a lot of people work, you have very limited amount of lots, right? So it's very difficult to find land there. And the homes that are built there, even if they're in bad shape, they're already worth $400,000 or $500,000.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So doesn't make sense.
You can't really do it there.
Correct. You can do anything.
So you think there you have more of a need for multifamily rental?
Correct. Yes. Or condos. And we know that condos is very difficult to bring homeownership through condos because of high insurance rate and,
right.
And those costs. And also it's difficult to educate the population to live in a condo. Like people want townhouses and single family. They're ready to drive an hour to have their own backyard. So that I think where the challenge is in terms of condos. Now, if you look at the north part of Dade County, you can probably bring a couple hundred homes a year there. But really to solve the problem, I think you have to go where the land is, which is South Dade. And, you're going to have traffic. You're going to have... But you know what they say, traffic is the price of living in paradise.
Right.
So.
Well, on that note, I wonder how much your model is also creating reliance on some of the decentralization that we've seen. We've seen sort of these quasi city centers pop up in places like Doral,
correct,
where there is, it now becomes this almost sort of self-servicing community
yes.
that you don't have to go into central Miami to do that. And it's again, they're suburbs by definition, but they're creating, in some cases, literally like in Doral, you've got a city center.
Absolutely.
And so it's a concentration of commercial and office. And
and you have the same thing at Dadeland. And now you're seeing the same thing in Homestead. You're seeing economic centers, Aventura, Homestead, Doral.
How much reliance in your modeling is there? I mean, you're anticipating that's a lot of the buyer?
Correct. I mean, there's definitely growth in Homestead. You're looking at commercial pieces in Homestead that like they rent upward of $50 a square foot now a year in Homestead.
Right.
I mean, we're recently have been looking for a sales center and it flies. So there's definitely an increase of like the economy of Homestead is doing way better than it used to be. And it's also because people are moving there. And,
well, you also have a lot of the people that work in anywhere from Isla Morada to Key Largo to
correct.
Ocean Reef.
Exactly.
And they all live in Homestead because they can't afford to live in the Keys because the Keys has gotten
exactly.
to the point where it's priced out.
Correct.
It's priced out in the Keys. So they're living in Homestead.
Right. Exactly. And
Salim, how are you, from a product standpoint, how are you balancing the concept of affordability in workforce level housing with quality? Because I certainly know by reputation, Bluenest has made a point of quality in its product. Where are some of those balance points? Because obviously you must have to make some tough decisions in terms of construction. Where do you find those challenges or opportunities exist?
So I realized really early on the only way for us to keep the quality was to build in-house. So we're vertically integrated. And this is why we're able to offer the quality that we can offer. Because
vertically integrated means they do the marketing, the development, the construction,
correct,
the selling, all of it.
Correct. And this was the only way for us to be able to bring this kind of product to market because hiring a GC would kill our margin. And so we honestly have high impact windows and doors on every single one of our products.
That's fantastic.
24 by 24 to 32 by 32 tile. We have wood kitchen, we have wood kitchen cabinets. We have countertop waterfall kitchens, 42-inch cabinets. So we really have a product on a $450,000 to $500,000, $400,000 townhouse that you could see.
But you're buying in bulk, and you're able to,
exactly.
and you're able to scale.
Volume definitely helps you drive down price, drive down cost, and because.
But you're not producing a cheap product. You're producing a nice product.
We're not. We're definitely producing a nice product. We have concrete in between floors. We have tile roofs. We have So it's definitely a nicer, upgraded product, and it all comes standard. We don't have any options. We don't charge.
Well, that makes it simple.
Exactly.
So then, I'm from everything that I'm hearing and everything that I've learned about you, it seems like your greatest challenge must be, where are we getting the next batch of land?
Correct. And that's where our app really helps. We've been able to, my brother has been working on this for like the last 4 or 5 years, where we have a full team of developers. And we basically just, look for land and we've been able to secure more and more land. So we have a good pipeline.
What's the necessary price per lot for you, approximately?
Around 20% of what you're going to sell the home for. So if you're going to sell a home for $400,000, you don't want to pay over $80,000 a lot entitled finished.
Okay.
So the only way to do that is to find land that you have to rezone, right? Because today land is so expensive that if you don't create value rezoning it, you're going to pay too much.
So you got to find agricultural land.
You find
and
agricultural land inside UDB. You go through the, CDMP zoning changes, and that's the only way for you to be able to bring communities to life that are going to be at that $400,000 price point.
And how difficult has that rezoning been? How much of that have been a challenge, or really an opportunity that just requires the effort?
So it depends. I mean, the challenges mainly are meeting with the community, making sure that they understand that, these are single family and townhouses. Granted, they're not 1 acre lots, but they're not 50-story towers. They're still, compatible with the area. I think meeting with a lot of the different communities that have been living there for generations, explaining to them that we're in a need for this product today. And, that is where the challenge lies, right? So,
and you expressed earlier that there's been some NIMBY impact, that, that there are people who initially invested at a, significantly lower price point. And now obviously through, the escalation of costs and real estate value, are now sitting, in $1 million homes. Correct. that were once $150,000 or $200,000 homes. There's a little bit of irony at work here that, that was the workforce component of our county. And now they don't want workforce components nearby.
Right.
Has that been your biggest challenge from the community?
100%. That really has been this bad connotation with the workforce housing. So whenever they hear workforce housing, it sounds...
Well, they're thinking low income,
Correct.
But it's not low income.
It's not.
It's policemen and nurses and blue collar workers and office workers as well. It's people
Correct.
who make decent money,
exactly,
but just can't afford to live in $1 million homes on the water.
Exactly, because Miami has gotten so expensive, they're getting priced out. And
there's no $1 million homes on the water, by the way.
That doesn't exist.
You're thinking 30 years ago, but
I know. So this has been the main challenge: sitting with these people, explaining to them, look, your neighborhoods are not gonna change for the worst. Actually, you're gonna have families. You're gonna have diversity, which is good for everyone. Because what's the next option, right? Is building low-income homes in low-income areas, then you're building ghettos. You're building, no diversity. You're not building things like where communities are open one another. And I think that, police officers, firefighters, they deserve a chance to own their home.
Yeah, otherwise you're just dealing with haves and have-nots. And ultimately, as I always say, that's not sustainable.
Correct.
I have another question for you. What are the requirements of the county or the cities for infrastructure? Like, what are you required to do for, call them impact fees? Because you're adding a burden to the county's water system, electrical grid, with putting more housing out in what was rural communities. So is that a big impediment? And how are you dealing with that?
So in a lot of cases, we actually upgrade the infrastructure. So a lot of the infrastructure in Dade County, we're on septic. Sometimes you have to build 2,000-3,000 feet sewer extensions because of the, amount of homes we're going to be bringing. We cannot build on septic. Also, there is a rule in Miami-Dade. Any newly platted lot for a single family home, if you're going to be on septic, you need 15,000 square foot, right? So we do our single family homes on 4,000 to 5,000 square foot lots. So we need to be on sewer. So we absorb that sewer cost, 2,000-3,000 feet, water, right? And then the other challenge is all of these areas, they were ex-ag areas. So you're always meeting arsenic, chromium, nitrate.
Really?
Always. You have to clean the areas, right?
So that's a positive for the community, is you're getting rid of some of those chemicals that have been in the ground because of fertilizer and the like.
So
was that overseen by DEP or?
So that's overseen by Durham, right? Okay. Which is not the easiest department to deal with in Dade County, but that's
shocking.
But yeah, so we have site where we have to scrap 12 inches of the topsoil that is full of contamination.
Where do you send that?
There's only 2 approved.
Miami Beach.
There's only 2 approved. It's going
right into my garden.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's only 2 approved facilities in Dade County where we can send that. We have to have it tested before sending it.
So this is just a cost of doing business down there.
This is the cost of doing business. So on top of the land, right, you have the fill. Fill is getting really expensive. You're talking 50,000 an acre for a foot. So because of floodplain, you need to bring up the sites, right? You need to clean the sites. You need to bring the water, sewer, all of the infrastructure.
So you need really to do big projects for it to be cost effective.
Correct.
So what is the average size of a development that you're doing? Is it 300, 500 homes?
So we have sites from 30 homes to 500 plus homes, right? So we'll still do the 30 and 40 home sites. We actually have spot lots, like I was telling you earlier, in Dade County. There are duplexes. We have a division that does just that. But again, in those sites, in the larger sites, the bigger, the better, because you can offset a lot of those costs, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So
are you also putting in how are you helping?
We are putting in road. Absolutely.
Yeah. But how are you helping the main arteries outside the developments?
So what we try to do a lot of times is,
are they asking you for money to do that?
Well, a lot of times what they ask you is to have the impact fees be contributed just to the area that you impact. Sometimes you can put that in the language if you can, sometimes it's tougher. But usually when it's a county site, you do have people that are asking you to to have the impact fees be used for whatever you're impacting.
So one of the areas of impact and one of the things that big developers sometimes do is they give money towards building a school.
Correct.
Or a park. Are you finding that to be something that you're A, involved in, or B, that's being requested of you?
So we have a project right now that is 90 acres down south, where we're going to be bringing a commercial component, and we're in talk with charter schools to put a 1,600 student charter school.
Wow.
And actually, it also helps you move your sales pace much faster. People...
Well, everybody wants to know what school district you're in and what school you're going to go to.
Does that also open up ESG opportunities as far as...
what is ESG?
Environmental sustainability and governance.
Oh my God. You guys are using acronyms like it's the NBA and the NFL.
We always have neighbors that are telling you, okay, this is great, but where are people going to go to school? Schools are getting packed in Miami. There are wait lists everywhere. So I think there's a good, component when a site is big enough that you can bring a commercial and a school. It's always a plus.
And when you say commercial, do you mean like a grocery store and a pharmacy?
Correct.
And all the things that people need in an everyday basis?
Correct. Convenience store, pharmacy, grocery.
And are you attracting big box into that? I mean, are you soliciting big box?
We're not allowed to disclose who it is,
of course.
It is a big box store. Yes.
Got it. So Salim, I've got this is a curiosity question, ties a little bit to what it sounds like.
Curious.
It's pretty curious. It sounds like tying into the application that your brother and you have worked on together. So it sounds to me like you're probably using some level of predictive analytics, maybe some artificial intelligence to spot sort of the next great land deal. But at what point do those predictive analytics begin to indicate that by targeting this rate of workforce level housing and the pricing, that the market's going to start to rise around it, that you're actually going to create your own marketplace, and these homes are going to become intrinsically more valuable. And as the population expands out of central Miami-Dade, that what you're now selling as a $400,000 or $500,000 home will itself eventually become $1 million home too. Is that something?
And will that price you out of the market?
Right, I was going to say, are you pricing yourself out of the market ultimately from that because it's no longer going to be affordable? I mean, I'm imagining saying, hey, we've developed this beautiful neighborhood. We've got access to big box retail. We've got a great charter school in the neighborhood. All of a sudden, what was an ex-ag piece of land becomes the next great Miami-Dade neighborhood, and now you're sort of sitting on top of this. While you're sitting on top of this great development, you've built the same challenge you're solving for now.
I mean, that's going to be up to us to face that challenge, right? But you want the price of the homes that you're selling to people to increase. You want people to have equity in their homes. If I look at all the homes we've been building since 2018, the appreciation of the homes, the buyers have made more money with the home appreciation that they have than us buying the land, building it, and selling it to them. And you want that. But you're right. At the same time, what happened is COVID, everything went up really, really quickly. Usually you have prices that go up, but take longer to go up. And I mean, I think that soon there's going to be almost no land left in Dade County, right?
So let me ask you a question. Do you see your company, you and your brother, going to Broward and Palm Beach?
Absolutely, yes.
Because,
I was leading to that. I was, if you'd given me the chance to play that scenario out, this is what we call building cadence, but this is what happens when you have a guy with a Hawaiian shirt on. So he just goes right ahead.
My point is, you have all of these island communities east, and there's no greater island community than the island of Palm Beach.
Yeah, of course.
Well, people have to work there, and they are definitely not living close to Palm Beach.
Absolutely.
So you have all this land in western Broward and western Palm Beach County. I would think that as land is no longer available in Dade County, it's logical that you're going to be moving north.
Absolutely. I mean, we're founded and we're opened in Dade County, and I love Dade County, and I'd love to keep doing things for here as long as possible, because I also think that the problem here is huge. But we are already looking at land in Broward and Palm Beach, because I think this is a South Florida problem. There's a Miami-Dade County problem. And this is where we're going to go next for land. But for now, we're still able to manage. Our goal in the next few years is to do over 1,000 homes a year. We're still able to manage enough, like to find enough land to sustain that growth. But the day we can't, we will of course be looking at other options.
Mayor Levine Cava, poo-pooed me on this question, but has the idea of moving the urban development boundary played into any of your logic? And again, I know that the likelihood of it is very low, but look, it's been played with a lot conceptually over the years, and obviously there's environmental impact issues of all sorts. But
we should not move it west.
Is that something that has come into any of your thought process?
I mean, I think at some point they're going to have to move it, right? As the county grows, but I don't think it's happening anytime soon. So this is why they're letting you densify whatever is inside UDB. And this also has been one of the major points we're pushing.
I was going to say, it's got to almost make your argument
Correct.
to say, listen, if we can't create better density, then we have no choice but to expand west as a community. It's not us as a developer.
Exactly. You have a 90,000 unit need. You don't want to expand UDB because the
UDB
reasons that make sense.
Is urban development boundary. Which is right up against the Everglades, if not into it already.
Correct. Like a lot of reasons make sense, right? Not to extend it at this point. So the only solution left on the table is to get more density inside UDB.
I also think that one of the things is to provide incentives in the inner city and provide incentives in the urban corridor that already exists, where you have older buildings, older houses, and you can, gentrify and do a mix of affordable housing and then some component of luxury.
And they are. I mean, you look at zoning, like, in the last few years, you have UC Center, UC Core, UC Edges, where you have higher densities along the transit development corridors. So that is happening.
Not much transit, but the corridors at least exist.
Correct. But that is happening, right? But you're going to see mainly their multifamily rentals.
Right.
Homeownership is very difficult to bring in a apartment building. And when you can build a 500 unit apartment building versus 100 townhouse, a lot of people are going to go with the 500 unit apartment building. So this is another one of the challenges of bringing homeownership, is that sometimes it's more efficient to bring rentals, but this is why rezoning from ag to townhouse or single family is something that we're pushing for, because you have the urban centers and the urban core, etc., for rentals, but you're not going to bring single family and townhouses in those areas.
Right. How much have you and your brother ever played with the idea of moving into more, mid or high rise development, around that? Or do you feel like you have your niche, it's what you do and you're sticking with it?
I think our niche is really homeownership. And, this is something that we love doing. We don't have any property management in-house. We build, we sell, and rinse and repeat.
Do you have people who have bought in one community, sold to someone else who meets the criteria, and then buys in another of your communities?
Yes.
I would think you would get some repeat buyers.
We've had, actually, it's very funny because a few years ago when we started, the cap price was $215,000. Now the cap price is $451,000. So it went from $215,000 to $299,000
tells
to
you the whole story right there.
$399,000.
Right. It's almost doubled in price.
So we've had people that bought at $215,000 6, 7, 8 years ago and ended up selling at $399,000 to also people making between 80 and 140%.
And now they're buying at $420 something, and they're buying a better product and a newer product.
Correct.
And they've got $100,000 in the bank.
Right.
Exactly.
Which is what the American dream is.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And exactly.
Yeah. He's whispering to me.
I'm whispering.
He does this sometimes.
So
I think the interesting piece to me not only is that effort in terms of really cultivating, as David said, that American dream, that being able to not only be able to afford buying a home, but being able to afford buy a home that has genuine future appreciation possibilities, but also this idea of building community. Now, on that, I'm very interested, as somebody who's done third-party property management for 20 plus years. obviously part of what sounds like your secret sauce is also that vertical integration extends into the day-to-day property management of these properties. Is that something that you have protected within, sort of the HOA declaration that you are sort of permanently entrusted with management? Or is it something, could a community make a decision to no longer have you manage? I realize there's an economic sensibility to it, but do they have that choice? Could an HOA board come together and say, no, we don't want Bluenest?
Every single one of our community, we turn it to the buyers. Our goal is not to keep the HOA. Our goal is to build the homes, have people move in, and then we bring an HOA company, and the buyers are then responsible for their homes, and third-party HOA companies are involved.
So when you watch that transition take place, has it always gone well? Do you feel like
so far so good, right? So
why are you going to give him a kanahara or a jinx?
Well, I'm mostly just trying to solicit my next management contract. But aside from that,
it's fine. We're open to talk and whenever you want. But yes, so far so good. It's been great. I'm going to tell you something. When somebody buys a home with 1% down payment, they're grateful, right? So they put.
I like that.
Yeah, they are, and they end up paying less than what they were renting for, and now they own a home. It's a bigger home than what they were renting for. So overall, we've never had issue. Now, like I mentioned really early in the conversation, we do have a signature division that does homes between $2 and $7 million. Those
different story,
correct? But people that buy a home for $400,000 in Miami, they're grateful A, to find that home, B, for the quality that they're getting, because compared to other product, it's a way better, it's a much upgraded product. And so we've never had any issues with people.
Right. So, listen, all of this, it's one of those scenarios. It almost sounds too good to be true. What's the downside? I mean, being able, if you take the Bluenest hat off for 1 second, and you look at what the potential, outcomes that are not as positive, not necessarily for the community, but for you as a developer or for potential buyers, is there any piece of this that you're still figuring out in terms of the long-term chemistry or viability?
Or keeps you awake at night?
I mean, you hear about tariffs right now, right? Sure. So you're locked at a cap price, and you're wondering, are you going to be able to be still selling and be profitable at that price? And how are the tariffs going to impact your construction cost? I remember during COVID, everything went sky high. We're paying $70 for a piece of plywood, a 4x8, when it was $17 before COVID. So right. After that experience, you're always kind of worried at what could happen.
But Canadian lumber suddenly is triple what
it went up in the last couple of weeks. It did go up. Right. And so are you going to be able to maintain the construction cost to be able to provide those amount of, homes at those amounts?
I have to imagine there's a little bit of arbitrage, though, in terms of interest rates that, as those come down. I mean, I don't know how much lower than 3% you're ever going to want to sort of, artificially create, and therefore to say there might be some arbitrage in there for you as well.
We're limited at the sales price.
Right.
We're limited. We have a cap price.
Right.
So even if we lower our interest rates, we cannot sell it for $500,000-$600,000. But if our cost increases, our margins are going to be squeezed. Right. So that's one of the fear that we have. I mean, besides that, really, we sell with 1% down. There is definitely a risk selling with 1% down.
What's the percentage of defaults?
Very low, because
they appreciate what they have.
Exactly. So look, we have a company policy. If a person loses their job and they cannot close, we give the deposit back. And that's usually the only scenario where they cancel their contract, is if, somehow a major life event happened. And
then they can't qualify anymore.
Correct. So we return deposits. And usually you have so much demand that you can replace that contract fairly quickly. So, I mean, besides...
But what percentage are you having to foreclose on your second mortgages?
We don't foreclose. It's the county that takes the second mortgage.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah. So we don't foreclose. And the county usually always works out with buyers because they also understand this problem. So,
And how much capacity does the county have?
They have. I mean, so far they've been haven't had any issues financing all of our buyers. So I think they'll be able to do a few hundred homes a year, keep going with a few hundred homes a year.
Well, I have to imagine just on a tax basis, there's a sensibility to it economically for the county.
Correct.
I mean, being able to convert that
exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
Renters into homeowners and non-taxpayers into taxpayers.
Right.
So think about it: a 10-acre parcel that was paying $2,000 to $3,000 for the entire 10-acre. With an ag exemption, now pays $2,000 to $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 per unit, and you have 120 units. So they're also getting some of that money back there. Right. So
talking about challenges, and we're always remiss not to discuss it a little bit on our program. insurance is obviously an X factor that has been difficult for all of us to get our heads around. And obviously not only the increasing cost, but the higher risk. How has that impacted your business? Obviously, we know that, the single family home insurance has been difficult over the last several years.
So far it hasn't, because again, due to our buy downs, due to our, lower interest rates, overall the payment is still cheaper than, of course, insurance went up, but still on a single family and townhouse, it's nothing major.
Right. And obviously you say you're building to hurricane spec. So you've got impact,
Correct.
You've got,
so you have a brand new home,
roof.
Exactly. So you have impact windows and doors. You have, so insurance is not that significant.
Is there a lot of flooding down in the South Dade area?
So we build above flood zone, right? So this is another cost, which I was mentioning earlier, is the cost of fill. So you have to be at least 8 inches above the flood zone. So, but like
Miami Beach is in the flood zone. You're not in the flood zone.
No.
You're above it.
Miami Beach is a flood. Yes. From flood zone, nothing. I mean, Miami Beach is in the water.
I mean, it rained last week and you've seen how many water we've gotten, right? It was crazy. You couldn't even drive. But down south, so it's been good. And again, we raised the homes above the flood zone. And this is, an increased cost we have because it's more fill. But it's been also keeping the cost of the
insurance down.
Correct.
Yeah, that's great. We're going to take a brief break, come back with Salim and talk a little bit more about what he's doing, as well as what advice he might give other developers, potential competitors, who are thinking of getting into this segment of the market, whether here or elsewhere.
As Salim's future attorney, I'm going to tell him not to answer that question.
We're also going to talk a little bit about what the future of this end of the industry holds. But for right now, you are listening to Sun, Sand, and Sold. I'm Josh Tumey with David Haber. Please join us online at all of your favorite social media and podcasting locations. We'll be back in a moment.